So this essay is your rhetorical analysis, 750 to 1,000 words. In rhetorical analysis, you're looking at an essay that's making an argument, and you are talking about how well it makes that argument. So for this, you can choose an essay from your book, or you can choose a reputable internet source. Anything you choose needs to be making a clear argument, it needs to be taking a stance, and it needs to be at least 2 pages. So what you're going to be ultimately concluding about your source is whether it is making an effective argument, an ineffective argument, or most likely you're going to be pointing out what strategies it uses well and where it's lacking. So when you start your essay, you'll begin with introduction and with a conclusion, as you will with all your essays, and then have body paragraphs that support your major points. For this kind of essay, you'll probably have 2 to 4 body paragraphs. Please do not feel like you have to stick to a 5-paragraph model. You will be opening with an introduction, getting your audience's attention, show that you are credible, and provide context for the article that you're going to be discussing. This is the appropriate place to summarize your article in probably 1 to 3 sentences so that the audience gets an idea of the whole argument at once before you start discussing its faults and merits. You don't want to spend any longer than that on summary because your point is to discuss how the argument is being made, not what is being said specifically. Your thesis will focus on the argument's persuasiveness. Your body paragraphs need to start with topic sentences that say what that paragraph's going to be about, relate that back to the thesis of your essay as a whole, and end with summary sentences tying together the ideas from the paragraph and linking that back to the essay as the whole. Your conclusion sums up what you've said without repeating the same words, and then you want to emphasize the importance of the discussion. So why is looking at how well someone makes an argument important, or why is looking at the flaws and benefits to the structure you look at specifically important? For this essay, you're not going to use any sources other than the article you're looking at. You'll use the concepts that you learned in class. So what kind of argument might you be making? Let's say you were looking at Christian Longo's discussion. You might argue that he is effective as he argues for the right of death row inmates to donate organs because he uses good appeals to pathos and to logos. But the fact that he downplays ethos is good because he doesn't actually have much, being that he actually is a murderer. So that might be your thesis about that argument. Or, looking at a different example, you might say that someone's argument that environmental concerns must be addressed immediately is effective for 2 different audiences, in this case a religious audience because it uses biblical ethos, and a non-religious audience because the biblical references chosen are specifically non-dogmatic, but he doesn't include a whole lot of evidence, and you identify that as a failure. Last example, looking at an essay of someone who is discussing GMOs, you might find that they do a really good job using logical evidence for benefits of GMOs, but because they engage in ad hominem and straw man fallacies when they discuss authors who disagree with their stance, they ultimately fail to make a convincing argument. Notice that all of these are talking about how the argument is made. You are not addressing the subject. So it does not matter what the subject is at all. You could completely agree with the author's stance, but find fault in the way that that argument is conducted. You could disagree with the audience, but think, or the author, but think that it's a really well-formed argument nonetheless. So, for example, if the author is saying that marijuana should be legalized across the entire United States, it does not matter whether you think that he's right or you think that he's wrong. What matters is how he makes that argument. Does he appeal to ethos? Does he appeal to pathos? Does he appeal to logos? Is he successful in doing that? Is there something that he doesn't do right or that he avoids? What kind of rhetorical features are being used? Is there repetition? Is a certain argument being addressed? Is there a certain linguistic feature? Is the language appropriate for the audience that he's selected? All of those things could be things that you're thinking about. But remember, you don't need sources for this one because you're just, other than your primary source, the one that you're analyzing, because you don't need facts. You don't need to prove him wrong and say, oh, well, you said that marijuana has this effect, but it doesn't really. Because that doesn't matter. What matters is the way that he makes the argument, not the content. As all arguments, we always need to be using MLA format. We always need to be using formal tone, correct grammar, punctuation, and spelling, and we always need to be using 12-point Times New Roman font. And let me know if you have any questions over this or any other assignment.